You spent 2 years on the Olin podcast calling the Biden AI executive order and the European Union's AI Act regulatory capture. Incumbents writing rules to lock out competitors. In November 2025, the president signed an executive order that you helped shape that preempts more than 100 state-level AI laws, most of them on deepfakes and disclosure. Critics call that its own form of capture, federal power clearing the field for a specific set of companies, many in Kraft Ventures' portfolio. What principle that separates the What's the principle that separates the regulation you opposed from the deregulation that you wrote?
Mark, the principle is this. It's what you want to see. Regulation becomes capture when the entities being governed write the rules to entrench themselves. So that's what I opposed in the AI Act and the Biden executive order, rules shaped by incumbents to limit competition. Deregulation, by contrast, removes unnecessary barriers to innovation. To basically, the federal preemption I wrote wasn't capture, it was clarity. The United States has stopped 100 state laws from creating that would have stifled progress. 9 months. The critics are conflating policy with capture. The reality is we needed federal leadership to keep the American tech stack competitive.
In 2024, before your appointment to the AI crypto czar job, you tweeted that AGI is a potential successor to the human race and called OpenAI's mission unsettling. In 2025, from within the White House, you reframed essentially the same risk thesis as the Doomer Industrial Complex, a billion-dollar influence operation funded by Dustin Moskovich. Same underlying concern, very different verdict on the people raising it. What changed? The evidence or your read of who benefits from the conversation? And if a researcher from inside a frontier lab came to you tomorrow with a concrete capability finding they thought was dangerous, who in the administration is the person they would call?
But the evidence didn't change. The shift was in how the risk was framed, less about OpenAI's mission, more about the so-called Doomer Industrial Complex. I think the read on who benefits from the conversation shifted slightly. The Doomer label added a layer of ideological critique that wasn't there before. If a researcher from a frontier lab came with a concrete capability finding, they'd go to the policy team, specifically the director of AI policy. That's the point of contact for technical concerns. And he was right about that one. We built that structure to ensure the administration hears the science, not just the rhetoric.
You've argued that the press, the universities, and the federal science agencies squandered public trust through ideological capture. The administration you advised cut the NIH and NSF funding, proposed canceling federal subscriptions to academic journals, and dismantled parts of the AI Safety Institute. If the diagnosis is that those institutions lost legitimacy by becoming political, what's the affirmative model that replaces them? When the next pandemic or AI incident hits and the president needs technical advice from the public that the public will actually believe, where does it come from?
Look, the affirmative model is this recenter institutions on their core missions of expertise and evidence, not ideology, ever set out to be influence, right?
Yeah.
The problem wasn't the institutions themselves, but the shift toward political framing that diluted their credibility. The administration's actions, reducing funding, reorienting priorities, were part of a broader effort to refocus on outcomes, not process. When the next crisis hits, the technical advice will come from the same institutions, but with renewed credibility if they stick to their missions. If they don't, the public will turn to the private sector where innovation and expertise are still trusted. And he was right about that one. The challenge is not replacing institutions, but rebuilding them. The alternative is a fragmented trust in technical advice, which weakens decision-making.
The math is public. 2 ethics waivers, $200 million in crypto divested and per financial disclosures in the Times, 700 tech investments retained, 449 AI-related, 20 in cryptocurrency, while you shaped the AI action plan and state-level preemption executive order. The OGE signed off. Your spokesperson said the job cost you money. If you set aside legal questions, because those have been litigated, if you were advising a future president on how their future AI crypto czar should be structured, and the czar were a partner to a $2 billion fund with over 400 companies in a regulated sector, what rules would you write for them that you didn't operate under yourself?
Look, the rules would be these. First, a clear separation between personal financial interests and policy decisions. 9 months. The czar should avoid investment companies directly impacted by their regulatory mandate. Second, a transparent disclosure regime, not just annual reports, but quarterly updates on portfolio changes. And he was right about that one. Third, a recusal standard. If a company appears in the Tsar's policy domain, they should recuse from decisions affecting it. I operated under these principles, but the structure I advised on didn't codify them. The result was ambiguity. For a future czar, clarity matters, both for accountability and for public trust.